And speaking of fortunes and Super Bowl hopes, we're going to talk about the Bucs
and their acquisitions of literally everyone.
And their acquisitions of everyone. This team is really scary.
My quick question first. How do they have any money?
How do they have any money? I have no idea.
They picked up so much that I'm just confused on how they even remotely have the funds to sign any rookies or anything.
I don't really know. It's a good question, and part of it has to do with Tom Brady only taking $25 million a year, like he always does.
Tom Brady just wants to win championships. He doesn't care about no money.
And
Giselle has enough money for both of them.
And he wanted to live a lavish lifestyle in Florida.
Not being cold Boston anymore.
Yeah,
screw that place.
Honestly, the perception of Tom Brady declining, I think the 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns or whatever, I would have to disagree with everyone who thinks that.
We kind of talked about that a little bit before the podcast today. When you decline from 1,999,000 is still great numbers down, but you're down from 1 million. So it's like, you can be down, but that doesn't necessarily mean you did anything wrong. So
yeah, and the acquisitions that they now have with Gronk and their draft picks, this team is a complete unknown, but a team that I don't think can't not win at least 10 games. I do not see them not making the playoffs at least. I feel like they don't have any chances of going under 10 games. So what does that mean for them? Well, that means that Tom Brady has wiggle room for decline, but that also means that they need to have a balanced attack, and they need to be able to use and utilize his strengths with short game passes, swing routes, ins, outs that are 5 yards. And they've definitely got that talent to do that. I mean, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, that combo is deadly. Mike Evans gets a lot of comparisons to AJ being like just a bigger version of AJ and a meaner version. That's true. He's nasty. Chris Godwin, he is nasty too. He did technically better than Mike Evans. I know he played more snaps, he played more games, but he statistically was really good, and PFF graded him like one of the best receivers right behind.
I really think a lot of that came down to so Tampa Bay, I've heard this from a lot of different places. In the past couple of years, they're more of a gung-ho offense. Like with Jameis Winston back there, they would ask Jameis Winston to hold on to the ball, launch it down the field, because he has so many receivers that can just go up and get it, go down the field, run and get it. So I really think with Tom Brady, I think they're going to switch it up a little bit, because it's never really been Tom Brady's style to just hold it, blast it down the field. He's never really had that arm. He's more of just a technician guy. Like, he's going to pick you apart. He's going to find holes. He's especially with having O.J. Howard and Gronk out there, there's going to be a lot of potential for him to run multiple tight end sets and just throw the ball over the middle, dunk it out to his tight ends and just different things like that. And even out of the backfield, he's got enough talent out of the backfield that he can just dump it out of the backfield if he really wants to. And then if they really find it necessary, they can run guys down the field, because Chris Godwin and
Mike
Evans, yep. Both, I don't really want to make that a comparison like this, but I'm going to have like that Tyreek Hill kind of thing where they can just book it down the field and hope for the best, because there's a lot of corners that can't cover just raw speed. If you just start running and go and make one cut, a lot of defenders will get caught up in that and then lose their way, break their own ankles, something like that, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're wide open down the field. And Tom Brady, one of the most freaking great, like considered the GOAT by a lot of people, has the ball in the backfield and you're wide open. So Like there's a lot of potential for this offense. They can just absolutely go off at any point.
Yeah, and looking at their schedule last season, they went 7-9. Was that right? 7-9.
Yes, I believe so.
And the 6 of their 9 losses came within a touchdown.
Yeah.
And you want to know what a lot of that stems from? It's from turning the ball over 40 plus times.
Jameis Winston's interceptions.
Yeah, going from someone who scores who scores that much but turns the ball over, and to someone that scores just as much as Jameson did and turns the ball over like
half the time,
0 times. This team is gonna be scary, and I cannot wait. You know, they turn things around the end of their season, so they're gonna carry that momentum.
Yep.
And you know, they kind of got dealt a bad hand just with momentum's sake. The first game that they played was San Francisco. That's rough.
Yep.
And then they go ahead and just absolutely beat the runner-up Super Bowl champs 55-40. You know, that's kind of insane. And what's crazy to me is that even with all those problems with them giving up that many turnovers, and the reason Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they gave up probably an average of close to 30 points a game. A lot of that stemming off of their turnover issues. And what's crazy is that this offense averaged probably like 29 points.
Yep.
And it's going to be crazy with Tom Brady. He's going to be throwing the ball everywhere. It's going to be different because he's going to learn to play their style, and they're going to mix in his style, and it's going to work. I'm telling you, he's played multiple offenses, unlike most people think. He's played with, the guy that's still there. What's his name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now. But I really think with Tom Brady, even he could even throw half as many interceptions as Jameis Winston did, and I really think they have a chance because a lot of, as you were saying, the 9 losses came down to like barely anything. They would throw like Jameis Winston would throw like 2 pick sixes in a game, say, or something like that. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before. I think it was last season. They played the Rams, and it might not have been the Rams. I think they played a game in London either last year or the year before, and Jameis Winston almost threw a record number of interceptions in a game. And that's coming off of a guy who threw like 5-6 interceptions in a game in the past before. So you really got to think if the Buccaneers could have been good last year. They could have been really that last playoff team to make it in. They could have been any of the wild cards like easily, because if they would have just not had so many turnovers, there's just so much that comes with turnovers. It's momentum swings, and say you throw a pick six, suddenly the game's tied again. You were up, had all the momentum in the world. You were up 7. You had the ball. You were driving down the field. Suddenly, boom, pick 6, game's tied. Momentum is back in the middle, more aiming towards the other side. So it's like maybe if they just didn't have those turnovers last season, and I'm not saying that it's all Jameis Winston's fault, because
I am.
I mean, with the style that they were trying to run, they did ask Jameis Winston to sit back there, then launch the ball. And a lot of that came down to, like, let's hope our receivers can get it. And when you have to sit back there for so long and you see guys, like, coming at you and you just chuck the ball, you're not going to be accurate at all. Like, there's just no way you're going to be.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that being said, you still can't throw that many interceptions in a season. There's literally zero excuse to be an NFL quarterback and throw that many interceptions in a season. Like Peyton Manning, I think his rookie or his second year or something like that,
28,
threw a record number of interceptions, and then Jameis Winston just goes and blows that out of the water. I'm like, dude, he's
been in the league 5 years.
Yeah, and you've been in the league long enough. So I think with the Bucks, it's really going to be interesting. One thing I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit. It's not necessarily about the NFC South or the Bucks necessarily, But kind of I just wanted to get your take on how you think the whole Patriots organization was going um, with Gronk retiring and Tom Brady leaving, and then Gronk coming back and being like, "Look, I can play again." Do you think that it just kind of came down to, so Gronk said he retired because he was hurting and he was getting hurt all the time and he didn't want to play anymore? But do you think it could have been because Bill Belichick and he didn't want to play for Bill Belichick and that organization anymore? And he was like, this organization is kind of toxic to him? Or do you think it just came down to, hey, I can have the opportunity to play again in a new city and I'm going to go beat Gronk and party in Florida?
I think it's a little bit of everything because Gronk is a very fun personality. He wants to have fun, and he has fun winning, but he also has a lot of fun partying and relaxing. And I don't think he could really do that with Bill Belichick. He demanded greatness, and greatness requires dedication and
no nonsense
sort of mentality. So part of me thinks he retired because, he is injury prone, and he's got a lot of options on both sides. He's got a lot. I don't blame him for retiring and then coming back because he's got a perfect opportunity to do so. He doesn't have to be the main guy like he was in New England. He can afford to not play every snap, but he wants to be there and have fun with Tom Brady. He knows Tom Brady will get him the ball, and he can preserve himself more while being in Tampa too. So it's I think this will be something that we look at and go, in the media at least, oh, he did this because he hates Bill Belichick. But the way I see it is that he really was retired. He was done with football. He didn't want to go and work and tear his body down more. Yeah. He wants to go out and have fun with what he can still do. So I bet you when we see him play next season, he'll be taking limited number of snaps. Mm-hmm. He might be just goal line situation, which if he's goal line situation, he still can have like 10 touchdowns in a season. Exactly. He can still be that dominant guy. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen with O.J. Howard or Karen Brate. We don't know if those guys are being traded or if they're going to stay on the roster or not.
You can kind of tell that Gronk and Brady really like to have fun together, because I know you've probably seen that Twitter video of them with the horn and Gronk being summoned and then him running up and being like all out of breath, just "I'm here" kind of thing. They like to have fun. So I'm kind of thinking a lot of it stemmed from not necessarily that Bill Belichick's a bad guy or anything, but he has a win first mentality, have fun later. And obviously you never see that in the freaking media, because even on his draft day, the most fun he had was him feeding a biscuit to his dog and then walking off camera. Everyone laughed it up for that, but he was just that's the most serious I've ever seen anyone feed a biscuit to a dog. And he was just all business. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe he says a lot of the time, Bill Belichick says it's him and he can win without Tom Brady. He doesn't really need Tom Brady. I think that relationship started to get sour a few years ago. I really think that Robert Kraft was the reason that Brady even stayed in New England for that long. I think Bill Belichick, not that he was like trying to get rid of Brady, like, oh, I want to be the big ego kind of thing, but he was like, look, Brady's starting to get old. He's like, I know Brady's starting to get old. I think he liked the guy. I think he loved him to death, because you would love a quarterback that wins you freaking 6 rings, but you got to be like, look, he's starting to get old. He's not going to be able to play at his highest, like he was back in the day. So we need to kind of start to move on, kind of find something else. And I really think him moving out to Tampa, like you were saying, Gronk knows that there's other weapons and everything, that he doesn't have to be that number one guy. He doesn't have to be him. It doesn't have to be him and Julian Edelman. And even Julian Edelman last season was so broke down that he couldn't play. Like, every pass became a hospital pass to him. Yeah. So I really think that's going to be kind of a thing that helps Gronk in Tampa, is that he's not going to have to catch hospital passes, because he's not the only guy. He can catch literally anything and not get absolutely blasted. And with a lot of his division, you can look at that division and kind of be like, look, a lot of that division, their defense isn't great. So the Bucks have all the potential in the world to score freaking 40 points a game on average, just based on those 6 games they have to play in their division. So I think Tom Brady has a whole lot of potential, and Gronk too. And even the rest of them, like, they all have so much potential to just absolutely go crazy next season. But again, in that whole division, it comes down to their defense. If their defense can put up some stops, put up some numbers, get some turnovers and things like that, I think the Buccaneers could absolutely easily keep up with the Saints and probably split with them, and then just be trying to run the tables with them next year.
Yeah, I'll just pose this question: is the Saints defense or the Tampa Bay defense better? Which one's better? Because according to the numbers here, Tampa Bay is better, but marginally.
I kind of see, again, I always go, every time this question's posed to me, I always go back to the Saints defense of the past, where they just hold people to 40 points and they score 41. So, I mean, I have kind of an unfair bias when it comes to that question. So, I mean, I do think the Bucks defense will be better next season. I don't necessarily say they were better last season. I know that they haven't graded higher, yada yada, but to be fair, the Bucks defense was probably on the field a whole lot more than the Saints defense was, just based on the million turnovers. So it's kind of a comparison. Like, you can look at the numbers and be like, oh, well, the Bucks were technically better by a bit, but when it comes down to it, you also got to look at the turnovers and the fact that this, and to go back a little bit real quick, it's kind of crazy that the Saints were 13-3, considering they lost Drew Brees, which is considered their franchise quarterback of all time, like the best quarterback they've ever had. And to have Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill come in and take over those kind of like mixed responsibilities, I think really speaks a lot to the team in general. So, like, the team just rallied together, won 13 freaking games without their star quarterback, without their number one leader on the team. Yeah, he was still on the sideline, clapping them up, telling them what they had to do, kind of thing. But it's not the same when he's just not out there and kind of being that game manager kind of thing. So, I mean, I really do think the Bucks have more potential than the Saints, if that makes sense, because the Saints are already kind of at their cap, kind of at their –
they're at their max.
Yeah, they're kind of at their potential area, but the Bucks have through the entire roof. Like, they have to the sky. They have the moon.
They have legendary status, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could go break Peyton Manning's touchdown record. They could go break the show or whatever.
The greatest show on turf.
Greatest show on turf. And you know, we didn't even mention the Bucks running backs, but the rookie could really bust out. And there's rookie running backs that just always manage to do great. And considering how they're going to be so focused on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they're probably going to just run free.
And another little fact that we kind of left out a little bit, as I alluded to earlier with Jameis Winston sitting in the pocket, just sitting there, bombing the ball. You got to know the offensive line is used to freaking protect him for like a good 5-6 seconds. They're used to having to sit there, and like keep the guy in. So, like, Tom Brady moving the ball that quick, I don't think he's going to have a lot of pressure this year. Not that their offensive linemen are the best in the league or they're absolutely insane like the Saints.
They ranked up top 10 actually. They were really good.
But they are like you just said, they are really good. So it's like Tom Brady with that offensive line, like, we know what happens. What happened in New England when he had an offensive line? When he had a really good offensive line, he had time. He could do a lot. That's when they just started scoring, and their offense led the league, and everybody else got screwed. So, I mean, I don't know if the Bucks offensive line can hold up, and their defense can just even do like a little bit. I think the Bucks have all the potential in the world to go through the freaking moon.
Yeah, and I feel like the games that are going to come down and matter the most, Saints and Tampa, those two games are going to determine a lot of the NFC playoff proceedings. You know, we could see Saints being like 12-4 and the Bucks being 12-4, and what would you do there? You know, like you could potentially have two teams that are just like neck and neck, one being the number 2 or number 1 spot, and then being the 5th or 6th spot. It could really change how things are. It's going to be a great season for Bucs fans. They really deserved it too.
Yeah, I really think it's going to be kind of interesting, especially with the other side a little bit. Not to get off track too much, but with you got the Seahawks and the Niners out there, which is always kind of an interesting dynamic, especially with San Francisco being on the way up, assumably still on their way up. Going to continue off from the loss. Maybe your bad juju stuff hits them, but
I'm a big believer in it. Just look at the last couple seasons. Yep. The teams that lose, except for the Patriots, they're the only ones that
Patriots are an anomaly.
Yeah, they're an anomaly. Every team that loses in the Super Bowl usually doesn't do what they're supposed to do. They don't make a playoff push. They lose in the wild card round, or they don't even make it. And it's you just gotta watch them, and we'll see. I feel like maybe considering how a lot of the teams are just now getting into training camp, and with everything that's been going on socially and medically, that maybe some teams will have a better advantage. But I just feel like the 49ers probably will have a bit of a downturn, and we'll see some more competition in the NFC. Usually the big dog is the Saints, and I still feel like it will be.
Yep.
They have been kind of an anomaly when it comes to the playoffs. Most teams that lose in the playoffs don't do as good the next season.
They just continue to roll on.
Yeah. So all about momentum. They are momentum defiers, and I feel like they will continue to do so into next season. But after that, it's up in the air from there. But back to the Tampa Bay. The team has legendary status on paper. It really just depends on, I feel like, coaching staff now. Do they have the coaching staff to do it?
I really think their coaching staff, I've seen some of the things they do, not necessarily in practice, obviously, because you're not going to see a lot of practice film.
Yeah, and
from teams,
to also clarify, it's Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles.
Yep. So I've seen a lot of what Bruce Arians does, at least on the field, and again, not necessarily on the practice field, but he has a lot of this is what we're doing. This is kind of his idea. This is kind of demanding. Yeah, he works with his guys, and that's important for any coach. You have to work with your guys, but I think a lot of what Bruce Arians does, he has a really good mind for the game. So combining that with Tom Brady, that's going to be another just insane kind of combo off.
He's worked with great quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly.
Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Carson Palmer.
There you go. And he can just again, they have all the potential in the world. A lot of their coaching is just going to come down to, can they make sure they're on the same page with the shortened workouts and everything. And I think that's what a lot of it's going to come down to the Bucs and Saints, I think. And it's going to come down to a lot of just which team was more prepared quicker. Because I think the beginning of the season is going to be the real kicker for a lot of teams. If you can start off fast and keep that momentum going, then you'll be all right. And then you can not fall off, because it's not, you never want to fall off, but fall off towards the end of the season. And
you
then
have the wiggle room.
Yeah. Then you have the wiggle room at the end of the season. So when you come into the very beginning of the season, you just start popping off. Especially again, with the lack of training that guys have been able to do. Yeah, they can do their own home training and things like that. But if they didn't have that set up before the whole pandemic and everything and the closure started, then they didn't really have an option. So I think a lot of those guys, they probably did outside workouts, went and ran, things like that. But there's a difference between being in game shape, being in playing shape, and being just in shape in general. Because a guy that goes to the gym 7 times a day, that eats perfectly and is ripped, isn't necessarily in football playing condition. He could go out and try to play football, but after that fourth quarter, after getting hit, it just takes a toll on you. So I really think the preseason is going to matter a lot to these guys. I kind of think that a lot of the rookies should play a whole lot more this preseason than they normally would. I think rather than doing the whole 2 quarters, put the backup in, kind of just to get off topic a little bit, just to make my point here, with like Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow should play a little bit more in the preseason than they normally would, because normally they'd be like, oh, for first game, 2 quarters out, second game, quarter and a half out, third game, 1 quarter, fourth game, not at all. I think they should up that a little bit, start playing them a little bit in the fourth game, playing maybe just like a quarter, and then take them out. Because I really think a lot of guys coming out of the NCAA, like coming out of college and everything, underestimate a little bit how much of a toll it actually takes. And like by mid-season, you hit a wall. Like you're like, holy crap, I've been hit so many times. I've been bruised up so many times that it's starting to get crazy. So I think getting that little bit of extra hitting in the preseason, because again, they have the shortened workouts and they have the shortened stuff. And I assume when they do 100% go back to doing all these things, there's still going to be restrictions on them being able to like hit during practice. Like they're not going to be able to just go out and hit for like 3 hours or so. They're only going to be able to hit like an hour, and then they have to kind of disperse a little bit and not be as many people in one area. Because
not to mention that, like you said, not many people in an area, but they're going to be split up into their own individual groups.
Yeah, so it's going to be a real test on one, team chemistry, with not being together all the time, being able to study film in a tiny little 3x3 room. You know, you're going to have that compatibility chemistry kind of thing that you need to look out for. You need to look out for teams hitting the wall. And like, I think that's where the Buccaneers and Saints kind of have an advantage over everybody else in their division. They have like a lot of like tested veterans. Like they have those guys that know what it's like to kind of be in a situation kind of thing. Like with Michael Thomas even being kind of a guy like that, even though he's not like a massive like old veteran type thing. And having Mike Evans with the Bucs and Gronk and Brady. All those guys, I feel like, are going to help them a lot make it through those kind of woes that they're going to have at the beginning of the season. And I really think that's where their potential comes out, to where they'll be the top 2 easily in their division, and even possibly in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree.